Hello Psychologies community, welcome to today's session. My name is Tania Diggory. I'm the founder and director of Karma. We're a training organisation empowering entrepreneurs, freelancers and business teams to nurture good mental health and well-being. So I'm really delighted to be back here today again this month to support the Psychologies community as one of the Psychologies coaches, mentors, supporters, and to help this community through a wide variety of topics on taking care of your mental health and well-being. And today the topic is going to be centered around how to identify and prevent burnout. A really, really important topic, and one that has just, attracted so much attention, I think, especially with this year, with the year that it's been, and what has undoubtedly been a bit of a turbulent year, to say the least, for many of us, and in many cases rather challenging and traumatic as well. But it's been a difficult year, a different year, and whatever year it's been for you, embracing change and uncertainty isn't always easy, but thankfully there are lots of tools and techniques that we can explore to help us gain those different resources that we need to support ourselves no matter what we face. So thank you so much for everyone joining me today. Hello everyone joining, thank you for being here. Pop your name in the comments, say hi, it's lovely to be here. And yes, I hope you're all keeping well and doing well today. So what we're going to be exploring is centering around the theme of how to identify and prevent burnout. So I'm going to take you through 5 different steps. It's kind of our core process at Karma that we take people through in identifying the 5 stages of burnout, what those signs and symptoms really mean, and the difference between stress and burnout as well, because there's a lot of awareness around stress, and what that means, and how we need to manage our stress levels. But actually, what is that difference between when it's stress and when it can actually become burnout? So that's what we're going to be exploring today as well. So I can see lots of you joining in today and tuning in. So thank you so much for joining this call and this session. Like I say, please do introduce yourselves and say hi in the comments. It's great to be here. So as well as going through the different stages of burnout with you today and identifying the difference between stress and burnout, I'm going to share a couple of techniques to help you with how to spot your own markers and your own signs and signals of stress so that you can support yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. So to begin with, one thing I do want to make a point about is that it's really important to not allow stress to be something, or high levels of stress to be something that just becomes really normalized and something we just get used to. I often still hear quite a few people in the work that I do as a trainer, as a facilitator in mental health and well-being, that many people say things like, oh, I'm really stressed, but everyone's stressed, aren't they? And that creates a bit of a concern for me, because it kind of gives the idea or the impression that, if we believe that, we're starting to just normalize high levels of ongoing stress, and that's not normal for the human body, right? So our bodies aren't designed, our minds aren't designed to just be stressed out all the time. So stress is a normal function, it's a normal response in the body. We do need that stress response in the brain to signal to the body when it's in fight, flight or freeze mode, when we need to be having that signal to know what to do, how to help ourselves and to manage stress levels. So short, manageable bursts of stress can be, helpful. It can be even useful in some cases. It can give you a drive, it can motivate you, it can help you focus on what you need to be paying attention to, etc. It can even make you feel proud of yourself, when you face a stressful situation and you overcome something challenging, you can feel quite proud of yourself. So there's the difference between that and actually long-term ongoing high levels of stress, which can lead to burnout. So I'm going to take you through the 5 stages of burnout, how to identify and, most importantly, prevent burnout from escalating and being a feature in your life. So the first step, the first stage, is called what we refer to as the honeymoon phase. So when you're just getting started on, say, like a new project, or something in your work that you're doing, or maybe something you're really passionate about outside of work, the key thing to bear in mind here is that occupational burnout in particular has become an all-time high in terms of risk factors, in terms of it being an issue in many workplaces. So very often burnout gets associated with work, but if you're not at work, you can also experience burnout with just a heightened state of feeling overwhelmed with so many different responsibilities in your life, or you may be dedicating your time to charitable cause or other projects outside of kind of working environments. So whatever it is, imagine that first honeymoon stage, right? So you've entered into a new project, a new a new working project or outside of work, etc. And you're feeling passionate, you're feeling engaged, you feel inspired, you feel motivated to get going, and everything feels very on purpose. You feel, like I say, really inspired with the work or the project that you're carrying out with. So that kind of is that first stage of really being engaged, okay, in what you're doing. Now, this may be, something that you've been working towards for a long time. It may be something, that you feel really, really passionate about, or that you're just feeling really excited about and wanting to do your best and really, really well. So that's that kind of first step. With the second step, the second phase, this is where you can start to experience an onset of stress. So as I mentioned before, stress is a natural response in the body. We all have that stress response in the brain. So if we get a bit neuroscientific around it, in the brain there's an area called the amygdala, and that's where the stress response lives. It's a very small but also very powerful part of the brain, and from an evolutionary perspective it's evolved over so many years to get to where we are today. And it's that same primary response. Its purpose and its signal is to tell us when we're in danger, right? So its purpose is to keep us safe. So to keep us safe and away from danger, okay? And that's its kind of core purpose. But that stress response in the brain cannot differentiate between when you're in a genuinely dangerous situation and you need to get out of it versus being in, a situation that is not life-threatening, but, it's stressful. But it's that same kind of intense response. It's this fight, flight or freeze response. The hormone cortisol is released in the brain. You have a surge of adrenaline that pumps through your body. And essentially it's preparing your body to face whatever it is that you're going through. But we can take that signal, we can receive that signal as something that can feel really threatening and dangerous, and our body responds in that same way as if we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, right? So back in the day kind of reference right there. So with that in mind, we need to manage that stress response. We need to figure out ways that we can have that internal dialogue to say, okay, I know what you're doing, I know why you're firing off, I get it, I understand, you're trying to help me. But there needs to be a way to kind of separate that. When the stress response fires off way too much, and if we unintentionally keep feeding that stress response, oh my God, I can't cope, this is too much, I feel really overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I can't do this, I'm not doing well, I'm failing, whatever it is, and negative repetitive thinking patterns, and if we allow things to spiral, and if it goes on for long periods of time, we're essentially feeding that stress response on an unconscious level. So close to the amygdala part of the brain, there's an area called the hippocampus, and the purpose of the hippocampus is to regulate our emotions, our feelings, but it's also where our working memory is stored. So when you're going through high levels of stress for ongoing periods of time, it can start to affect your memory recall. It can be challenging to really regulate and process your emotions in a healthy way. And also it can impact your ability to think clearly, which is centered in this prefrontal cortex part of the brain here. Affects your decision-making abilities, your concentration levels, your motivation. This is your thinking, doing, logical, practical part of the brain. So those three parts of the brain need to kind of work in tandem together when you're going through that stress response. Because if that stress response keeps getting fed, then it's difficult for the hippocampus to do its job in terms of regulating your feelings, your emotions, and bringing resources back into the prefrontal cortex. So you want to try and find these techniques that work for you to help kind of manage those stress responses as and when, so it doesn't escalate, right, too much. Easier said than done sometimes, fully appreciate that, but what I'm talking to you about is an ongoing healthy habit and practice to cultivate. It's not just a quick fix, right? So when we talk about an early onset of stress, it's those early signals. Maybe you feel a tightness in the stomach, maybe you feel a bit like your heart racing, maybe you feel constricted breathing or a bit sweaty in your palms, a bit shaky, maybe you've got headaches, so you feel like you've got a lot of whirring thoughts going through your mind. But it's this onset, you're still passionate, excited about what you're doing, but you're feeling like, okay, there's a lot of responsibility here, or there's a lot more than I realise, there's a lot of expectations, or I'm struggling to manage a little bit with, the workload or whatever it is. And so you're noticing those stress signals come up, but it's not too much of an impact at this stage, but it's that understanding, that recognising, I'm feeling quite stressed, okay? So the next phase, the third phase of the 5 stages of burnout, is the potentially chronic stress phase, okay? So if you're allowing, and when I say this with kindness, as in we all as human beings can sometimes allow things to escalate, and we tell ourselves, I'm fine, I can keep going, I can just do this, it's fine. But we're human beings at the end of the day, not human doings. We do need time to switch off, recharge and reboot. We're not designed to just be doing all the time. we do need to take that step back from time to time. So all of us, any of us, could fall into a pattern of just continuous, ongoing doing, and stress levels can build and build and build, you know, to a point where, if it's, like I say, short, manageable bursts of stress where you go into a state of stress but you come out of it, that's a healthy, manageable way of engaging with stress, okay? Because we can't fight the stress response. It's important, it's there, we do need it to help ourselves and signal it's something important, but it's how we manage it. If we allow the stress levels to reach a height where we just keep on going and we're fighting past any kind of signals that our body is sending us to slow down, and we reach that high state of stress for ongoing periods that are unresolved, and we just keep experiencing it at high level, then that's when it can lead to more chronic levels of stress. So those little signals that I was talking about before, maybe they can start to extend into behavioural issues. So your mood fluctuations are a lot more erratic. You start to notice that your sleep is being affected a lot more. So then that's affecting how you feel the next day, your interactions with others, your reactiveness to situations. It can affect how you engage with other people. You know, how you manage your time. Things can feel increasingly overwhelming. You may even find that you are turning towards more substances as coping mechanisms. So more drink, let's say, rather than just a nice glass of wine here and there, you're turning to drink quite regularly, or chocolate or coffee, and a substance, you know, that you turn to as a way to cope. And there's that behavioural attachment there to a product of something that is helping you to cope with the situation, but it's just aggravating potentially the situation more. You know, it can still interrupt your sleep, especially if you're struggling with sleep already. If you're drinking before bed, if you're having lots of sugar, caffeine, then you know that's not going to help. But just as in general during the day, you know, we need to manage those levels as well. So it starts to get a lot more difficult to cope. Then, if it's still ongoing, you reach that fourth stage, which is burnout. Okay, so burnout is the sum of total mental, physical, emotional exhaustion. It's where you feel really depleted in your energy levels, like a car running on empty with no fuel. You wouldn't expect that car to keep running, yet as human beings, somehow we can still expect ourselves to just keep going, because it's silent. If you think about it, you can't see it. We're talking about our mental health. If you're feeling and emotionally going through burnout, it's hidden here, right? No one can physically see that it's happening, but you know internally it's there. So it's like the physical health equivalent of someone breaking their leg and just trying to get on with work, not needing crutches, just walking into the office, you know, I'm just going to keep going, I'm not going to elevate my leg, it's just, you know, don't need to, that's fine. It's basically the equivalent of that when you reach the stage of burnout from a mental health perspective. So we need to give ourselves those crutches at that point, if not sooner, of course. You know, we need to give ourselves time off like you would expect. If you'd broken your leg, you'd give yourself weeks off work, whatever time you needed, you'd elevate your leg, you'd rest, you'd take whatever time you need. And we need to give that same emphasis and care with burnout. At this stage, in terms of the signs and symptoms that you could be experiencing, you know, you could be experiencing real disassociation and potentially quite a lot of apathy, you know, with your work, with your engagement with others, etc., because it just feels too much, way too overwhelming. You've completely reached your limit. And we all have our limits. Like I said, we're not made like machines, so we have our limitations. So apathy, you know, heightened state of behavioural issues, feeling disassociated with others or disengaged, actively taking yourself and disassociating yourself from social engagements, from, you know, being around other people, just fully throwing yourself into whatever it is that you've been doing, but also struggling at that stage to really function at your best. You can feel detachment to reality in a way. You know, you feel like you're not really yourself, your usual self. You can feel quite isolated in that sense, especially if you're experiencing all those symptoms, and heightened states of anxiety, heightened states of mood fluctuations. And then that fifth stage, continuing beyond that, it can enter into habitual burnout, right? So at that stage, it's where it can really escalate into more longer term, potentially, mental health concerns and issues and problems. For example, depression. You could be experiencing an anxiety disorder at that stage, such as panic attacks, or you know, PTSD if you've been through something traumatic, you know, engulfed within all of this, because we're also still living our full life around whatever work or project we're engaging in, and you know, we're trying to manage as best we can, dealing with all types of situations. And like I said at the beginning of today, particularly when you look at the year we've had and how turbulent it's been, how uncertain and how much change and challenge there's been for so many of us, that affects our personal and professional life. So at this stage, you may also feel like your personal life has been affected as well as your work life, or whatever you're doing outside of work. So there's a real imbalance there, but it's got to a real chronic stage. It can be chronic fatigue, chronic stress, like I say, depression or anxiety disorder, where it's really gotten ingrained into a place where it's very difficult to cope, and you're feeling a heightened state of low moods, feeling down, feeling tearful, disassociated. Like I said, you could be feeling like I say, increased issues with sleep, increased issues with connecting with others, or even articulating how it is that you really feel, pains and aches and tensions in different parts of your body. So those are the kind of 5 stages. We have the honeymoon phase, we've got onset of stress, we have chronic stress, burnout, and habitual burnout. I hope that's been really clear for all of you. The good news is, no matter how much of a state there is around the world at the moment with occupational burnout, with people feeling stressed and worried and concerned for their livelihoods, for their well-being, etc., particularly given the year that we've had, the good thing is there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there are so many ways that you can look after yourself and take care of yourself, so that you can prevent stress from escalating and prevent burnout from being a feature in your life. So look at it as, it's important to understand these 5 stages so that I can let it sink in, be aware, and now make the choice to really enhance and cultivate that deeper sense of self-awareness, so that I can start to recognize what my signals are in my body when I'm feeling stressed. So we can start to recognize as early on as possible what those signals are in our body, so that burnout doesn't become a feature in our lives. It's something we're aware of, it's something that we know about, and we know that however heightened states of stress peak, that we can do the best that we can to peel it back, and nurture good mental health. So I want to sort of share a couple of ideas for you as well of how you go about that. And really, these are looking into ways of creating ongoing healthy habits on a regular basis. So not just a one-off, but you're talking about deepening your sense of self-awareness. So by that I mean understanding what those triggers might feel like. So I'm going to do a little exercise with you. If you think about a time when you felt stressed, nothing too triggering or emotionally difficult to think about. So think about what was going on at the time, what you were thinking of, what you were feeling in your body, okay? What was going on in your mind. Think about all those different signals that I talked about before, all those different signs and symptoms. What was coming up for you in that time? So like I say, nothing too triggering, but just to give you a sense of, what was going on. Okay, so think about that. Note what it was. Was there tension? Was there aches, pains in your stomach? Like I say, that knot in your stomach expression is linked to your brain and your gut sharing similar chemicals. So if we've got a lot of worrying thoughts going through our mind, it can impact our digestive system. If you've got aches and pains in your body, if you're feeling sweaty, shaky, if you're feeling quite sick and nauseous, that's very common with anxiety as well. So think about all those different signs and symptoms. And then now I invite you to shake it off, like literally just shake, move your arms about, move your legs about, move your body. And what I'm talking about here is state change, okay? Because you don't want to be staying in that state of thinking about something stressful. So you physically want to move, just move your body a bit, shake it off. This is to do with the mind-body connection, right? So in neuroscience research, they've highlighted that the mind essentially has the ability to either heal or hinder the body. So essentially, what we think affects how we feel and therefore how we behave. So it's really interesting. So when you think about that, the mind and the body are connected so much. They're really interlinked. So when we're thinking of that, if you thought about something stressful, I just really encourage you to just move and then think about something positive now. So see what I did there? It's much better that way around. Now, when you're thinking about something positive, a really happy memory, something really, really content, that you feel really centered. So think about that. What was going on in that time, right? So notice what signs and symptoms you felt in your body. So were you feeling more relaxed, more at ease? So, think about what else was changing. What was the shift? So, what was going on for you there? Notice that difference, yeah? Are you noticing your breathing is different? Has your breathing relaxed? If you imagine even when you're on holiday, this is nice. Are you taking deep inhalations of breath without even necessarily realizing it? It's something that sometimes we're not always consciously aware of. So breathing in and out regularly because we're not feeling tense in the body. Remember what I said about the mind-body connection. So, you know, feeling that tension, is that tension now released? Do you feel actually just really centered? Do you feel peaceful? So just noticing that difference between the stress state and the content state. So we're not naturally in our bodies designed to be stressed out human beings. So when we think of our natural state as peace, peaceful, content, serene, right? So when you think about that, how do we get back to that natural state? Okay, so when you're feeling stressed and you're feeling, you know, like things that are tense, take that step back. So this is the next step I'll give you as a tip. So give yourself permission to take a step back from whatever is going on, and just give yourself that space, physical space, head space, to just be, to breathe, connect with your breathing, because by connecting with conscious breathing rhythms, it helps you to expand your lung capacity, improve your respiratory system, but most importantly, it calms down your nervous system. So if your nervous system's feeling really on edge, taking those deep inhalations of breath in and out will help to naturally calm down your nervous system. And then from there, you know, think about what you need, the access choice, because when we feel in a disempowered place, it can be easy to lose sight of the fact that we have choice. Okay, so really just think, okay, what are the choices that I have? If it's difficult for you to think for yourself because you're in a really heightened state of stress, who can I speak to? So think about who you can go to talk to about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what you're going through. And what choices do you have? What options are there? What can you do for yourself? You know, what can you change? What can you take out? What can you delete? What can you say no to? Sometimes we overload ourselves with things to do without necessarily realizing it. So just getting a recognition of what you can maybe say no to, or move out the way, or shift or change, you know, that can be helpful as well. So, you know, think about those aspects. So, you know, recognizing those differences between state change of stress and feeling at peace, giving yourself that space to take a step back, because burnout really can escalate, or stress can escalate into burnout when we don't give ourselves that time and space to breathe and to just take a step back and to reboot and to reflect. You know, because our brain is taking in so much information all the time. It would be sensory overload to take in everything that's going on around us. So we choose and focus on what we want to pay attention to. And if we're constantly paying attention to things that feed that stress response, then is where it can keep escalating into burnout or habitual burnout. So you need those moments of reflection, those moments of calm, those moments of time out to reflect for yourself, but also get support from someone else potentially, you know, to help you really recognize what you need in that moment. So connect with the breath, create space, and identify choice. Those are kind of three areas that I would encourage you to explore next time you're noticing those stress signals firing off. And as soon as you can, try not to allow it to get to the phase where you're feeling consistently stressed out and then it's more difficult to kind of peel back. But think about who in your network you can turn to for support when you need, and how you can help yourself through exploring choice. Thank you so much for the comments as well that have been coming through. I'm glad to see this is resonating with you. Please do share as well if there's anything that you find really helps you. Add in the comments what supports you, what helps you to reset and to manage stress levels, because it's different for everyone, right? I mean, you can look at these tools and the ideas that I share with you today like you'd be trying out a new physical exercise, a new online class, or going for a walk, or going for a cycle ride. You know, different things work for different people. So try this out, see what works. You know, try those few techniques I talked about, with breathing techniques, with creating that space for yourself, with, you know, exploring and identifying choice for yourself or with others, and see, you know, what sticks. It's different things for different people. So try out these exercises, share with each other, add in the comments below. Explore, you know, what works for you and see what works for other people as well, and just start to give yourself permission to take that time for yourself as well, to identify those stress responses and manage them in a way that helps you. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your kind comments as well, and your feedback, and just joining me today live, and for those watching the replay later, I hope this really helps you too. Just a quick note about the Psychology's Life Leap Club as well. So this is the online club for subscribers. When you subscribe to the magazine, you get access to so many other coaches, experts in this field of, supporting yourself, of, trying to live your most creative life, living a mindful life. What does balance mean to you? So loads of different amazing coaching opportunities to support you in your life at this time. So do find out more information by signing up on psychologies.co.uk. And in the meantime, it's been a pleasure again to be here as a representative of Psychologies. And I'm here every month. I do a monthly session. I hope that these tips around how to identify and prevent burnout have been supportive for you today. And also just to note that we've got our podcast at Karma, so our organisation. It's called Take Regular Breaks, and it's the positive mental health podcast empowering you to find balance in all aspects of your life. So we interview amazing thought leaders and creative entrepreneurs in this space of mental health, of wellbeing, of understanding what it means to find a life of balance in your work and all aspects of your life. So if you're interested, please do tune in. We're on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, all the main streaming platforms. You can find out more information on thisiskarma.com/podcast. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate you joining me today and wishing you an empowered week ahead, a positive round off to this year. Do plan things for yourself that's rewarding, that's connecting, that's nurturing for your health and well-being. And I very much look forward to connecting with you again in the new year. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.